Even the Normandy roads remember D-Day. Look down at the curbs in Bernier-sur-Mer. Maybe to you, that seems like wear and tear, but those are really the marks left by Canadian tanks rolling through 80 years ago. Natalie Worthington is part of keeping them just as they are.
Those are markers of what happened here. You don't necessarily see it, but when you know it's there, you've got to maintain it as it is.
Like the bullet holes in the walls, the bits of metal embedded in the roads, leaving the scars in place matters. Natalie's world is the memory of what Canadians did for France. She runs the Juno Beach Center, which cherishes those soldiers and their efforts. And she carries the memories in her DNA.
There is a lot of information that is not really known.
Grew up with the tales of liberation from her parents, brutal tales from her mom in particular.
When I was a little girl, I asked her, why is it you like the Allies, you like the Canadians? They are the ones who destroyed your house, destroyed your hamlet, killed your friends. That's all that happened during liberation. And I remember her saying to me, you've got to understand what it's like to live in an occupied country, to be a little girl who's hungry, to be a little girl who's afraid to see dad taken for work in Germany. And she said, we knew that the only way to get out of it was if the Allies came to liberate us. So when the Canadians arrived, we knew that was the end and the beginning of a new life. And whatever the price was, we had to pay it in order to be liberated.
Her parents are gone now, but others who were kids then are still here. Do they ever have stories to tell?
Hello.
Oui, bonjour Gordon.
Hello.
Oui, c'est Jean-Claude.
Jean-Claude Alaparine on the phone with the Nova Scotian, who's now like family. Their connection born of a shocking encounter in his family's front garden on June the 7th. Jean-Claude was just 12. On the 7th of June, when the hand-to-hand combat was happening, what happened in your garden? Who did you find in your garden?
The German counterattack was very vigorous, very, very severe. And when it calmed down, we went out. And in my parents' garden, there were 2 Nova Scotians who were wounded. One, from what I remember, was named Martin. The other one, named Oswald Bellefontaine, was hurt and couldn't walk because he had injured his leg. And my mother took care of his leg a bit and told him her name was Lucille. Out of nowhere, an evil SS soldier in a leather jacket showed up with his pistol and put a bullet in the heads of both the Canadians. My father and his countrymen ended up burying 37 Canadian soldiers, Nova Scotians.
What a huge trauma for a little boy who grew up to be a man devoted to paying respect to all those Canadians buried in Normandy. And it was during a visit when he met a Canadian woman from Yarmouth named Evelyn. She was looking for information about her uncle. His name was Oswald Bellefontaine.
The whole Bellefontaine family believed that he had died when he landed on the beach. They learned that he had been murdered by the SS, wounded and cared for by my mother, and murdered virtually in front of my parents' eyes.
A story told, a relationship forged. For decades now, Jean-Claude has traveled to Nova Scotia. Oswald's extended family, like Gordon on the phone, have been to France. There's a lot of love and remembrance.
We must recognize that they gave us a lot. Freedom is to go where you want, to do what you want. I don't know if people today realize the importance that freedom represents.
Jean-Claude will be there at the D-Day ceremonies with a thank you in his heart. And so will this woman, Colette Leguy. She was 9 years old on D-Day, remembers feeling something was about to happen because the occupying German soldiers were suddenly stressed, some fleeing. Not long after, she and friends encountered soldiers in her village who spoke French. It was the Canadians.
All the soldiers were sitting on the sidewalk in the afternoon, and they were waiting to go back up to the fighting. The neighbor had a rose bush. It was full of white flowers. We picked some flowers and brought them back for everyone. They put them on their jackets, just to make them happy.
They were very tired, those soldiers?
Yes, of course. One of them told me after, we're like cattle going to slaughter.
Did you think in that moment, oh, the war is over?
Oh, yes, I think. For days, everyone was moving around. We felt good. It was liberation.
Colette's home is still a place of pilgrimage.
This is the Landry family from the Magdalen Islands.
Her album's full of the pictures of the days when vets would come for huge dinners, and then the years that school class trips from all over Canada would come to pay her a visit. They're still coming.
80 years is a long time ago. What do you hope that people understand about what happened there?
We had freedom suddenly. It's something that money can't buy. Young and old, we felt it. Free, finally. No constraints.
So how do you keep this feeling alive and the feeling of that bond? Spend enough time in the lovingly curated Juno Beach Center and it will come to you. It does when you look at the letters written by grieving Canadian parents asking French families to look after the graves of their sons, and then realizing they did. It comes to you when you watch Natalie, who often meets with witnesses. When you hear her say she has no doubt memories will stay alive long after the soldiers are gone.
Sometimes people say, what's going to happen now that we no longer have veterans, or not many veterans? And my answer is what I've observed. You would have a veteran who would come here with his wife. That was 84. They didn't have anywhere to stay for the night. They were veterans on their motorbikes, trying to look for accommodation and knocking at doors. And we ended up with Canadians in our house because people were looking for a place to stay. And then after that, he was coming with his children. And now it's the children coming. It's the nieces, grandnieces, granddaughters.
Now a dozen people can show up on the Normandy beaches to carry the memory of just one D-Day vet. And the Canadians who do come should be prepared for a warmth that is unique, as the last French witnesses and their families say the thank yous they've held for 80 years.
It's very deep in them. Those Canadians came to lose their life here, to liberate them. And they are the ones you're going to find on the first row of the ceremonies. As soon as they're going to meet Canadians like you, they will want to tell you the story. They will want to share because it's part of them.
Juno Beach, this land, is part of all of our stories.